Hey everyone, welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Today, we're exploring a tiny, seemingly random stretch of pavement that's somehow managed to change the face of popular music time and time again. I'm talking about the incredible, chaotic, and honestly, deeply fascinating musical legacy of the Sunset Strip.
Okay, let's dive into this. The central mystery we're unpacking today is simply this. How exactly did a 1.5-mile dirt road, which was originally just meant to connect Hollywood studios to Beverly Hills, end up birthing rock's absolute biggest icons? Like, how does that actually happen?
Well, the magic of the Sunset Strip isn't just about the musicians who played there, it's really about the physical space itself. You see, for decades, this tiny stretch of California road served as the ultimate incubator for multiple generations of legendary musicians. It provided this wildly unique, completely irreplicable ecosystem where artists could just experiment, mingle, and eventually explode onto the global stage. To understand how this all came together, we're going to go chronologically. We'll start with the legal loophole, move into the 60s counterculture, meet the club kingmakers of the 70s, witness the 80s West Coast metal explosion, and finally, look at the grunge era decline. All right, starting off with Section 1, the unincorporated legal loophole. Our story actually begins not with a guitar riff, but with a massive geographical anomaly all the way back in the 1920s. So picture this geographical divide. On one side, you had the Los Angeles city limits, which were patrolled strictly by the LAPD enforcing prohibition laws. But the Sunstrip sat just outside those city limits, in an unincorporated area of Los Angeles County. Because it fell completely outside LAPD jurisdiction, it immediately became this safe haven for wild behavior. I mean, it was the perfect environment for speakeasies, brothels, and casinos to just absolutely flourish, drawing in the Hollywood elite who basically just wanted to let loose away from the watchful eye of the city cops. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds. That initial rebellious, unregulated DNA laid the exact groundwork for an ever-evolving ecosystem. What started out as a dirt road casino haven in the 20s evolved into a counterculture hub in the 60s, a glam and punk playground in the 70s, and then the absolute epicenter of heavy metal in the 80s. The common thread through it all? It was a place where the normal rules just didn't apply. Which brings us to Section 2, the 60s counterculture clash. By the 1960s, those old mobster casinos started losing their appeal, and that paved the way for a booming, youthful music scene. And this 60s ecosystem on the Strip was incredibly vibrant. The legendary Whiskey A Go-Go opened in 1964, which basically helped launch a go-go craze across the entire country. But crucially, the city instituted a tiered licensing system, and that allowed teenagers inside these venues. So you had these incredible artistic incubators, like the London Fog, where a young band called The Doors served an apprenticeship playing just absolutely unholy amalgamations of hard blues covers. Bands like The Byrds, Love, and Frank Zappa were all cutting their teeth right there in this densely packed creative hub. But of course, this massive influx of teenagers hanging out on the Strip eventually led to complaints from business owners, which resulted in really strict curfews. And this sparked the infamous 1966 Sunset Strip curfew riots. The youth pushed back hard against the police sweeps. As Reverend Schatz noted at the time, quote, "There is a drastic social need that is being demonstrated there, and this should be recognized by society." This clash notoriously birthed one of the era's absolute greatest protest anthems, Buffalo Springfield's For What It's Worth. The Strip wasn't just a place to hear music anymore. It was literally the front line of the counterculture. Now on to Section 3, the legendary club Kingmakers. Moving into the 1970s, the physical venues and the people who ran them became just as famous as the bands themselves. These establishments totally anchored the scene. You had the Roxy, which was founded by industry heavyweights like Lou Adler and Elmer Valentine. Then there was the Rainbow Bar and Grill, run by Mario Maglieri, who was widely known as the godfather of the Sunset Strip. The Rainbow became this ultimate clubhouse where you could spot Led Zeppelin running amok. Or, in a brilliant twist of rock and roll irony, you'd find Lemmy Kilmister of Motorhead religiously playing video poker in the corner. And of course, there was Rodney Bingenheimer's English Disco, which was a glittering epicenter for the UK glam rock movement, dropped right in the heart of Hollywood. Now, what made these places true incubators was the absolute, mind-boggling lack of regulation. Just listen to this quote from Quiet Riot founder Kelly Garney about the era. 13-year-old girls could walk in dressed like sexy 25-year-olds, and kids could sidle up to the bar and order a cocktail. I mean, teenagers were literally rubbing elbows with David Bowie and Iggy Pop. This wildly unregulated environment directly nurtured young kids who would soon grow up to become the massive rock stars of the very next decade. Section 4. The West Coast Metal Explosion. And that brings us right into the decade of peak excess, where the Sunset Strip became totally, globally synonymous with one thing: glam metal. For a musician in the 80s, living on the Strip was a highly competitive, super gritty daily reality. It went something like this. Step 1. You arrive in LA with big dreams of landing a record deal. Step 2. You live in absolute squalor. Actually, a lot of bands famously relied on their fans to literally bring them bags of groceries just so they could survive. Step 3. You hustle to get gigs, often having to actually pay clubs like Gazzari's just to secure stage time. And Step 4. You spend all your nights constantly networking out in the Rainbow Bar and Grill parking lot. It was just a massive, living campus of musicians hustling at breakneck speed to get noticed. But the dam finally broke in 1983. Quiet Riot's album Metal Health reached #1 on the Billboard 200. This was a level of commercial success that was previously completely unheard of for a hard rock or metal band. Alongside bands like Def Leppard pushing metal into the pop charts, this was the exact moment everything changed for the Sunset Strip. So the crucial point is, as Quiet Riot drummer Frankie Banali summed it up perfectly, they essentially kicked the door wide open. Suddenly, major record labels were swarming the Sunset Strip like prospectors in a gold rush, just absolutely desperate to sign any hair metal band that looked the part. Bands like Motley Crüe, Ratt, and later Poison and Guns N' Roses became global superstars practically overnight. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these bands completely revamped their aesthetic to win over the masses. They pulled heavily from 70s glam rock, think New York Dolls and T-Rex. They traded in traditional heavy metal denim and leather for spandex, lace, heavy makeup, and a massive, unbelievable amount of hairspray. Musically, they combined hard rock riffs with pop-influenced hooks and slow, emotional power ballads. This highly calculated fusion made them absolute darlings of the newly established MTV generation, completely dominating programs like Headbangers Ball.
But we are now at Section 5, the grunge era decline, because nothing lasts forever. As we shift into the early 1990s, we see the sudden, really dramatic collapse of the Sunset Strip's dominance in pop culture. The cracks actually started showing in the late 80s. The 1988 documentary The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years, famously exposed the deeply toxic, completely debauched extremes of the Strip. You had interviews showing musicians heavily intoxicated in swimming pools, which really helped peel back the fantasy and sparked a massive cultural backlash against the sheer excesses of the hair metal lifestyle. Audiences were frankly just getting tired of the formula.
And this brilliantly illustrates how swift the backlash was. The polished, highly theatrical corporate metal of Los Angeles was completely blindsided by the raw, stripped-down aesthetic of Seattle grunge. Bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam brought dirty distortion, dark lyrical themes, and the sense of vulnerability that completely rejected the glam metal visual style. Almost overnight, the Sunset Strip bands found themselves out of style, out of heavy rotation on MTV, and facing disbandment as audiences completely moved on. Which brings us to the Strip today. While legendary clubs like the Whiskey and the Roxy absolutely still stand and honor their incredible heritage, the era of the unregulated incubator is largely over. Today, the scene is heavily dominated by established corporate models and pay-to-play booking. The Wild West, lightning-in-a-bottle moment of the Strip has basically been frozen in time, reminding us just how fleeting, pure, unregulated creative eras can really be. Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. The Sunset Strip birthed icons because it was a true geographical anomaly, a physical location where a lack of rules forced ambitious, creative kids to literally bump into each other, compete, and collaborate every single night. In today's highly regulated, globally connected digital music world, could a physical, lawless incubator like the Sunset Strip ever actually exist again? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.